Good evening, social media. I want to thank you again for coming on to the Jadis Alive platform. We have a wonderful discussion today, but before I want you to move forward, before we move forward, I want you to know that before we were an hour show, we're going to, as of today going forward, we're going to narrow it down to 30 minutes because Jadis Alive is also on Elations Radio. And today is our first recording session, and that's at 7 o'clock. So this show is from 6 to 6:30, and then the Elations Radio show is from 7 to 7:30. That way, I'm still getting an hour in. I'm not taking away a lot of home time, but we are actually expanding the audience because not everybody is on this platform. And then we go on Elations Radio. We are spreading the platform and spreading the viewers. So we just want to let you know that going forward, this show is still going to be every other Monday, as it has always been. But the Elations Radio is every Monday, every Monday. So you all, if you want to hear some topics, we're going to talk about some things on the radio as well. It may not necessarily be the same things that we talk about here live on the platform, but guess what? It's still going to be centered around topics that's going to help us eradicate abuse, whatever that is in shape, form, or fashion. And so I want to thank you guys. Also, we are having a platform in June. We are having a new program called Developer Program where we will work with girls from the ages 13 to 19, and we will teach them intro to entrepreneurship and mobile app development. That way they can build their own app and house it on the Apple platform as well as Android. So go to the website if you have any female girls, teens between the ages of 13 and 19. This is a free class. It's 5 days and 1 week in June from 10 to 12:30. Have them to come as long as they have their laptop. We're going to teach them fundamental things of entrepreneurship and mobile apps. So I just wanted to get that out there. Again, thank you all. And we have a wonderful guest here today. Her name is Dr. Sherilyn Channing. I love to say that because, we came from the same stomping ground, CPR, Christ Pilgrim Rest Missionary Baptist Church. Her mom, my mom, my dad, all of us grew up in the same church. So when I say we go way back, we go way back. And so I just want to share some things. I know a few discussions back, we talked about being resilient. And I had that broadcast. It was actually me just talking about it and just talking about some of the things that we go through as women. And we have to be resilient and how to be resilient, how to bounce back because everybody, don't bounce back the same. And everybody's time frame is not the same. Mine's maybe 3 weeks. Well, somebody else may be 3 months. It doesn't make her less or any more stronger or less weaker or anything. It's just her time is her time, my time is my time. And guess what? The next time it may be the reversal. But the thing is about resilience is no matter when or how, we just want it to happen. It just needs to happen. And so that being said, we are going to be talking about a resilient woman. And this is Dr. Shatting. And I want to talk about some things. I know you went to some HBCUs, and to shout out to them, because I went to Dillard University as well. And you got your PhD in biomedical physics,
And
physiology,
physiology.
physiology. You know what? You got a PhD in front of your name. It doesn't matter what topic it is. That is awesome. And so, we just want to talk about and just kind of discuss, Shirley, just some of the things, some of the women to let them know about being resilient. Because one, some people feel like, oh, I done messed up in life. I done went through the divorce. I done went through the loss of a child. I done went through whatever they done went through. And they feel like it's over. It's done. I'm done. I can't bounce back. Or some people feel like they have wasted a lot of years maybe on them, doing nothing, or maybe they feel like they wasted years with somebody. Now they're up in age and they feel like, okay, I done wasted all this time. I don't have nothing. I can't go back. But I want you to share your story because, you've accomplished a lot, and you're fairly young, and you didn't just get your PhD like last year, but you've had it. And so kind of share some things. And I know we talked about resilience and being topical, but I know you wanted to talk about even when you need to ask for help, because we don't like to ask for help. We think we can do it all, and we think we got the big S on our chest, and we necessarily don't. And sometimes we need to scream out for help. So let's kind of share some of the things about us. Give us your background, and if you can kind of share with some of the viewers that may be going through something similar or just think that they're at the dead end. So what are you?
Okay. Thank you, Cynthia. And first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me. And as you already mentioned, we do go way back to Christ Pilgrim Rest. So I really appreciate this opportunity. And thank you. And, to the audience, Cynthia is one of the many women that I looked up to growing up at Christ Pilgrim. So it's a pleasure to be here at this moment. So just to tell you a little bit about me, and then we'll get more into what it takes to be a resilient woman. Hopefully you can get something from that. But I am a native of St. Louis, so that should be obvious. But I live in Houston, Texas right now. But I grew up in St. Louis to a single mom, although my dad was definitely around. So I guess they were co-parenting before that was a thing. But so, my background probably is a little bit different, but, my parents were just regular working folk. So, no college degrees. They, went to high school, migrated here from the South. So very humble beginnings, I would say. Grew up in North County, graduated from Riverview Gardens High School. Shout out to class of 91. So, there was nothing handed to me in that regard. So I definitely came from a background where I had to learn a lot of things from, looking up to other people and having people that will look out for me. One thing that was definitely preached to me from my mother was to go to college. And, she didn't go to college, but she wanted to. And I mean, it was to the point of like, you're going to college, or I don't know where you're going to live if you don't go. So I had no choice. Although I always wanted to go, but I kind of had no choice no matter what. So, I knew that I was headed there one way or the other. But, there were things that were kind of influenced me. Like I grew up reading Ebony magazine, and that was like there would be a special article, the top 100, the top 100 influencers in the Black community. Like they would have college presidents and deans and people like that. And so that's always where that really inspired me, and I knew I wanted to do something like that. I didn't know really how to get there, but for some reason that really connected with me, and that's what I wanted to do. So, I went to Fisk and, majored in biology, and with the intention of, going to medical school initially, but, that didn't happen. But, and I see some of my classmates on here, so thank you. I'm trying not to get distracted by the comments. But, I went to Fisk, came back home for a summer, and realized, staying at home for the summer, with my parents, as much as I loved them, wasn't going to be it. So I had to figure something to do. So I called back down to Fisk, and they had this like a Bridges program with master's to PhD. And so I entered that program and earned my master's at Fisk, and then went into the PhD program at Meharry, which is across the street from Fisk in Nashville, Tennessee. So I did that. The things that I thought I wanted to do as a medical doctor could really be accomplished through scientific research. And I didn't know that because I didn't grow up with researchers around or mentors, as well, most people, the doctors that we're familiar with are the ones that treat us, when we go to nutrition, whatever. So that's all I knew. I didn't know about professors at colleges and researchers. So it wasn't until I actually went to Fisk and got exposure, which is really critical, that really showed me, there are other ways to contribute to even the medical field, because the work I was doing was cardiovascular biology. So
before you go forward, I want to ask you a question. You had said, you got exposure.
Mhm.
So how can somebody that's watching this who feel like they might be quote unquote stuck, they hear, life has dealt them, they're dealing with life. We all deal with life. But what kind of exposure, what are some of the ways, because maybe they're past the traditional student, and I know you went to college and you got the exposure and stuff. What could they do? What do you think? What can you share with them as far as exposure, so they can kind of come out that shell or that box? Sometimes we put ourselves in.
That's a good question. And so some of the advice I would give would be the same advice I would give to, a younger student that's on their way to college. So one way to get exposure is to introduce yourself to people, whether it's, so say you are interested in science, and, looking on websites of colleges or medical schools, and, looking up faculty, and, you have to put yourself out there. And, emailing them and saying, I would like to learn more about, what you're doing. Can I come and talk to you for a few minutes? Can I have what they're called informational interviews? Can I do an informational interview with you? You're not asking for a lot of their time, but, putting yourself out there and introducing yourself to people is one way to do that, by finding information on websites, on LinkedIn, and those kinds of things, whatever that.
Because people normally want to share, right?
They do. People love talking about themselves. So yeah, so it's true. So that's one way to do that. And of course, even if you can't get a person like in person, reading things can help, reading articles about a particular area until you are able to make that one-on-one or in-person connection with somebody can really help you, because so much is on, the internet. It's not like when we grew up,
Right.
there's almost
The big dictionaries,
everything.
encyclopedias. Nobody liked to look at. They were just for decorations on a shelf.
Exactly. No encyclopedia salespeople are coming to our houses anymore. So we'll find out pretty much anything you need to know on the internet and get that knowledge. You do have to be careful of your sources, but that's another story. But I think, reaching out to people and reading about an area to know if you even like it. And if you have the time, I strongly suggest that people volunteer their time. I understand people are working, but volunteering your time, again, if it's sciences in a lab, or, if you want to go to law school or something, volunteering to write like a law brief or whatever lawyers do.
And that looks good on your resume as well. It's showing you, right? Showing that you are.
Yeah, so definitely volunteering is critical. Whatever little time that you do have, I think will help with that.
Awesome. So with that being said, I know you had been down there. I know you was down there for some years, like what, maybe 10, something like that?
In Nashville, at least, yeah. I lost count, but at least 10, yes. I spent all of my 20s in Nashville, Tennessee. So
okay, yeah, I knew you were gone for a while. And so with that being resilient, and I know you talked about, that, but talk about some of the setbacks, because, when we talk about that, we have to we have to understand that that's going to be baked in. Nothing goes exactly as planned as always. We always get the bumps in the road and stuff like that. And so a lot of times with me, when things are going right and well, I'm like, okay, I'm just waiting for whatever go come around that corner, because something is coming. And so what did you do when you had your setbacks? I mean, did you come up against professors who kind of, said you wasn't going to make it, or why why do you want to be a PhD? Why don't you just be a nurse or something? We've all been through that.
Yeah.
So how did you do that? Because that's a part of being resilient too, because in your mind you had already made up in your mind what you want to do versus someone that you probably either looked up to or aspired to or had the power to pen for the grade, telling you, in other words, you shouldn't try to reach that high, maybe just right here. So
Yeah.
what did you do about that? Because that's a part of being resilient, bouncing back.
Yeah. So for me, and gosh, it was a mixture because going to a Black school, you do have the people who are definitely in your corner, but you also have the people that kind of have in their mind what they think is best for you, or that there may be a lid on what you can accomplish. And so I certainly had those people, but for me, it was, well, I want to prove them wrong. And so it inspired me to try to do better and to keep on by saying, well, I'm going to prove you wrong. Like, I had someone that earlier on, whom I respect this person immensely, but I wanted to change my major to chemistry, and they thought, well, I wasn't analytical enough to go into chemistry, although I'm much better in chemistry. So, I took their advice, but sometimes I wonder, should I have taken that advice? But really, when people said things to me like, oh, you can't make it, or why are you making this choice, just gave me, for me, more fuel to do better. Because most things happen probably in graduate school when I wanted to do, at that time, what we would call a non-traditional path. And, people were like, well, why are you wasting your time, getting a PhD and, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, because I want to. And so for me, it just added more fuel for me to keep on in school.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. And the fact that you take chemistry, I wasn't trying to do chemistry in nobody's college. I finished in high school. I'm like, let me get this math. What kind of masters can I get? Do it involve chemistry? No, I'm not gonna do that. I tried engineering, engineering 2. What is it? Calculus 2. I was like, I'm done. My brain is just like locked down. Clink clink. That's what it did. But it's good to hear that, because we want the women to know, yes, you followed the traditional path. You came right out of high school, you went straight to college. Some of us didn't do that. Some of us messed up in college. Some of us messed up and had to go back and get our heads together and went back and got our degrees and stuff. And so being resilient, talk about, briefly the life part. Because even though you're in education, you're in school, you still have life. You still deal with life. We fall in love. We fall out of love. We like folks who don't like us. We go through all of that, And so share with them, what you want. It can be topical, but even, because you were an only child, right? So you
I
it's not
grew up an only child. You're right. I didn't grow up with my sister, so I do have a sister, but I grew up. She lived in another state. So.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't know, but you was Mary's only child.
Yeah,
right?
I was Mary's only child.
Yeah, and so, but so you didn't have that big family, like everybody come together and folks, fussing and fighting and arguing over the food and doing. You didn't have all of that,
Right.
and so you pretty much had to kind of depend on probably a small circle and stuff. And so, how did that trickle over into life as far as, because you were married, right? Obviously, and you had a son and stuff. So, did that come in through school as well? I mean, did you meet that person in school as well? Okay.
No, I think most of my life really hit for me once I started after school. So like what we call postdoctoral training. When I moved to Baltimore for a couple of years, and that's when my parents started getting pretty sick, off and on. And I would have to travel from Baltimore to St. Louis several times for like major illnesses. And I got to the point where I had to make a decision if I was going to stay on the East Coast or, move to St. Louis. So I made the very hard decision to move back home because I was pretty set. I was going to make my life, my career in the DMV area because, there are lots of jobs and opportunities for
Yeah.
scientists. So, I made the decision to come back home, and I met my then husband at the time in that area, and he moved to St. Louis once we were married. So it was a tough decision and a big transition, for everybody. But I'm really grateful that I did do that because I would have regretted it had I not done that. Because soon after I moved back to St. Louis in 2005, and then my dad started getting really sick. So and he passed away in 2007. Then my mom became sicker right after that, and she passed away in 2010. So between that time, I dealt with the illnesses and the deaths of both of my parents. Not only that, when they were sick, and I was newly married at the time, so they were sick, it would be a literal revolving door. Like when one parent was being discharged, another person was literally being admitted to the hospital. And so that happened several times. So it was definitely challenging because I was just starting my career as well. So it was trying to figure out how to do career, how to be newly married,
Caregiver.
To my parents. So it's definitely hard. My husband at the time was very helpful with my parents, so I was grateful for that. But after they passed, I kind of had like an identity crisis, right? I didn't really know who I was because I wasn't a daughter or a caregiver anymore. So it's like, well, who am I? What do I do? I focused a little bit more on my career for a while, but I knew I wanted to be a mom. And so we dealt with, there's so much that I've dealt with in my life, but, dealt with infertility, but we adopted. So my son is adopted. And so,
okay.
So we went through that process, but also went through a failed adoption. So, it's like life hits you in so many ways, but you still keep going and have to find that that motivation to keep at it, even though things are happening that you don't necessarily expect, and things you're not necessarily prepared for. Well, I wasn't prepared for adoption the first time. I'm like, okay, wow, okay, cool, this is what we're going to do. And then for it not to work out the first time, but then it's like, well, that wasn't our kid, so have is certainly our kid. So you find the blessings in the things that don't work out, even though they're absolutely horrible at the time. And I'm telling you that failed adoption, took me to a place where it was kind of like losing. I felt like I did when I lost my parents. So it was a really tough time.
You said something really key when you said you have to find the blessing in things that don't happen. And, that is very key to being resilient because, when things don't go our way,
Yep.
the last thing we think is a blessing.
Yep.
That's the last thing. But it's almost like you have to reinvent. You have to train your mind. Okay, you know what? Well, if I didn't get it, it wasn't for me. That means there's something else better. But we have to constantly talk to ourselves and tell ourselves that, because if we don't, like you said, we'll get in a slump.
Yeah.
we'll get in a slump, and sometimes we get so far down it takes a lot to get us out. But a
Mhm.
part of being resilient, I like that. That was very key. Viewers, if you are listening to Dr. Shadding, what she's saying, you have to find the blessing in when things don't go your way. Now I've never heard it said like that, but that's awesome. You have to find the blessing when things don't go your way. I'm gonna have to keep that. I'm gonna have to keep
Okay.
that in my mind. I really, because you know, we all have life and we all go through things, but then when things don't go our way, the first thing is disappointment. Oh, why me? Why is this happening? You know, the disappointment sets in before the blessing or the appreciation. Because
Mhm.
somebody made a statement that a lot of times when we don't get something, God is protecting you from something you don't know nothing about.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I believe that that's true with, oh gosh, like every fiber of my being, and it does not feel good at the time. It does not feel good at all.
Right.
Um, you have to trust and believe that he's got your back, from and that's for me. That, I'm a Christian, so everybody may not have that same belief, but that's where my strength comes from, and what I believe in. Even when things are not going well, I have to rely on, well, this is what I know, and this is what I know about him. This is his character. I know that he's not just going to leave me out here like this. We go through it, but
Mhm.
it's through, right? And not intended forever. So you have to hang on to that. And one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I did say is that I think one of the keys to resilience that's related to this is reflecting on the things that you have been through before and knowing that you can get through this again, right? Because things are going to continue. I think you said this earlier, are going to continue to happen. That's just life. So when things happen to me now, that seem like they're like really, really bad, I can reflect and say, look, girl, you've gone through this, 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 and this. This is like walk in the park. It's still hurt. I'm not saying, I don't mean to be to negate anything that anyone is
Mhm.
through, but sometimes you can reflect on, look over your own life and see the things that you've come through that can help you get through that next thing. And kind of compare and say, well, if I got through this, then I can definitely make it through this. So um,
That's
again,
awesome.
it sucks going through it, but you
Right.
get your confidence that you can make it through whatever the next thing is.
That's awesome. And so, viewers, what she's saying is a lot of times we need to take a introspect, go back and, like, you know what? Wait a minute. There is nothing too hard for God. God is not going to put no more on us than what we bear, whether you believe it or not. We're not saying you'll have to be a believer or you're not, but whether you believe it or not, He's not. But the thing about it, you are still here. You are still here
Mhm.
living. You're still here breathing. Some people didn't make it, but you
Yep.
made it. Some people didn't, couldn't get past whatever it was that they was trying to get past, but you did. And
Mhm.
so if you got past that, you're going to get past this. And so a
Mhm.
lot of times, I like what you said, Dr. Shannon, you have to go back and say, girl, wait a minute. We have to encourage ourselves, because a lot of times we can't wait for everybody to be our cheerleaders and give us a pat on the
Mhm.
back. And sometimes they're not going to be there. So you have
Mhm.
to be your own cheerleader. You have to pat your own self on the back. You have to remind yourself. You have to encourage yourself. You know what? No, you went through this, hell and high water. You did this. They said you weren't going to have this, but you got this. And then what you do, you start counting the blessings like, okay, I am stronger. I
Mhm.
did make it through that. Because a lot of times we feel like stuff is so bad that, this one gonna take me out. No, it's not
Right.
gonna take you out, because the last one didn't take you out.
Right.
And so, yeah.
And I do want to say this because I know you wanted me to hit this point. Sometimes when it feels like we can't shake it or we can't get to that point where we can remember our own resilience, that may be the time to seek out help from external sources, whether it's talking to a friend, but seeking out that professional help and not being ashamed that you need that help. Everybody needs help every once in a while. I'm a big believer in seeking counseling and getting the counseling that you need. We go to a physician when we need help for a headache or high blood pressure, whatever. We can go to a professional counselor when we need help, when we can't quite shake it. And there are some times when our minds are so clogged that we can't remember the things that we've been through to do it on our own. So sometimes you do need that external help, and there's nothing to be ashamed about for seeking that external help.
Awesome. That is awesome and so true, because you don't want to keep stuff bottled up.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's bottled up, somebody can just ask you a simple question and you have just blown up. And they was like, all I just asked her was, did she have, change for $20, whatever. It was, it wasn't even that. It was something behind it, because we keep stuff bottled up. And then when we blow up and blow out, now we got to repair that. Not only do we have to repair whatever we're going through, now you got to repair whatever you just messed up, because we hold that stuff in and we shouldn't hold it in. And I agree with Dr. Shadden. Get some help, talk to somebody, pray about who you should talk to, because you can't talk to everybody.
That's true.
Share. You want somebody that's going to be an open eye, that's going to have open ears and an open heart, and that's not going to judge. We don't need you. Today is me, tomorrow it could be you. So I just wanted us to have this short discussion about resilience. Dr. Shadden has shared a lot of stuff, some great nuggets about, thinking about being blessed when stuff don't happen. Find the blessing in that. And if you don't remember anything else, this discussion, two things. One, get some help if you need it. Do not have so much pride that I got it. I'm good. I'm good. No, you're not good. Because if you was good, you wouldn't be chopping folks' heads off. You're not good. And two, find the blessing when things didn't go your way. Find the blessing in it, because it's for a reason. And that I'm talking to myself on that one. That one I'm talking to Cynthia about, because when things don't go my way, that's the last thing I'm thinking is a blessing. But you have told me something tonight. And so, Facebook, social media, I want to thank you guys. I want to thank Dr. Shadden for coming to talk about this, being a resilient woman. She has accomplished so much in her young. I am so proud of her, and she is a CPR. She is from our hometown, and I mean, I can just be so proud. I'm just proud of what she's doing, what she's accomplished. And the thing about it, I like what you said. She was from a single mother that co-parented. So it doesn't matter your background. It doesn't matter where you come from. Don't let nobody put you in your past. Don't let nobody put you back wherever you come from. If they want to send you back there, tell them to go back there. But you gonna keep going forward. It's not where you come from, it's where you. So don't let nobody keep you in your past and where you come from, because that's not what you're concerned about. You're concerned about your future, and the future is before you and ahead of you. So with that being said, I want to thank you, Dr. Shadden, for coming. I'm like Shadden, not I used to call you Sure, but Shadden, Dr.
You were only supposed to use my government name, Cynthia.
Dr. Shadden. So I just want you guys to thank you for coming on again. Again, we have this discussion every other Monday. It's bi-weekly on Mondays from 6 to 6:30. And then I also go on to the Elations Radio. That will be 7 to 7:30, and that's every Monday. And the topic will not be the same as what we just talked about, but guess what? We're going to talk about something that's going to deal with eradicating abuse, because that's what it is. It's JADASA 24/7, 365 days, all day, every day. And with that being said, I bid you good night.